This is the Because I Feel Like It podcast. We have a special guest from the Burgundy and Gold report. My guy Adam. He covers the Commanders, and he's gonna give us a lot of good intel on the team. We're gonna go back and forth on the matchup, and then any loose information we have out there. So get ready for a good show. All right, so Adam, right now, the state of the Commanders. What is the vibe around the team right now?
I think there some are kind of backtracking a little bit because after last team lawyers in response to the upcoming AG announcement that Brian Robinson, who a lot of people, the Washington fans, shot in an attempted carjacking, right. And they kind of used that in context as in like you worry about that instead of this team. But the fact of the matter is that's not us. They oversee, basically it's the treatment of human beings and in the workforce and, equality, men, women, other races. That's his basically today, unfortunately, for fans, it was mostly civil matters. It's all civil matters. That's going to put Snyder and the team under more of a microscope. And, as much as fans want to, team is about to be sold. It's coming. This has been the dream for someone like me. Yes. I've been a fan since 1982. I was in D.C. celebrating the Super Bowls, and we're such a far cry from what that Jack Hancock passed away. And we all were like, yeah, okay, it's going to go to the Sun. And then all of us go into a bidding war with, other bidders. And it was a shame because I actually got to feel that point. But then as fans, we saw Snyder kind of played fantasy football, signing, Deion Sanders here, but the fact is all those guys are already on their last legs. And ever since then, everything from the team, the cheerleaders, to what the hot dogs are being sold at the stadium. And this, so as much as we just want to keep it on the field right now with a lot of the announcements, the key, the way, especially female employees were treated, I think we're going to continue to happen with that, just like with the Redskins name change. I think that's when you get sponsors or affected things, and that's faster.
Right. So my next question is, Mr. Snyder, it just seems like, obviously, I talked to you before we jumped on air, being in the area, it just seems like everything around him just engulfs the team. Like when they get some momentum, like they've played great to me the last two and a half games, or really two and a half games until the fourth quarter of the last game, and it's just like every time they get some momentum, something comes up with him, and it just takes over the vibe of the team. Like you just mentioned, the whole thing with the Attorney General Racine's report in regards to everything going around the team, and he adds in Brian Robinson that had really nothing to do with everything that was going on, and it forced Brian's I forgot it off the top of my head. Brian's representation to jump out with another, statement defending him. So it's, I'm with you. I sympathize with, Commanders fans in regards to that, because I'm just like, man, just like everything's just toxic. And I believe, me personally, I believe the Commanders have a good team. I really do. It's just, him, he's standing in the way. So I'm glad, we got that kind of out of the way, because I don't want to, it's a lot of negativity. You don't want to push on to that, man. It's really about the guys performing on the field. Right. So as far as, the Commanders and Eagles matchup, obviously we played early in the season, with Wentz as the quarterback for the Commanders. Where do you see this matchup going?
The thing is, Washington fans, anyone who's realistic is not giving them much hope, honestly. What I like is they're going to get a boost probably from Chase Young returning, and Jahan Dotson. He was one of the top rookies in the league until he went down. he had 4 touchdowns in 4 games. But again, just like we're always talking about, it's the quarterback situation in Washington. You know, a lot of fans, legend of Heineke, you know, they're still really riding that playoff Tampa Bay game when they Tampa Bay. That's what, you know, fans are really holding their hat on. But as I stated, I've seen the show before. I've been and, you know, I'm a big fan of their rookie quarterback, their 5th rounder, Sam Howell. And I think him a shot, in my opinion, to be in games, because right now, like you said, they're playing well, but that's keeping them in every single game. The running backs and, you know, Terry McLaurin, you know, if it wasn't for Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, some of the catches they've made, you're talking about dropped interceptions. You're talking about them coming 2-3 just underthrown. So it's a problem right now. And even though they're, you know, you could argue that he could have 7 interceptions. There's been drop passes, you know, just don't think this team, they do have talent at some important positions. I think their defense is better, which is surprising. But, you know, it comes back to the main difference, I think, isn't just the talent level, it's the coaching. Yeah. Philadelphia's coaching right now. You know, I went situational play calling, and wow, they're just ahead of most of this league right now. And you're talking about everything has to go right for Washington, and everything has to go wrong for Philadelphia for that Monday Night Football. You know, as a Philly fan, you know, I'm sure you remember the Michael Vick game. You know, you remember
yes.
Washington, regardless who the coach is, and it's so cliche. I feel that's really changing until ownership changes, because for some reason there is a dark cloud. It's because how it translates to the field, but I think the way it does is the people that answer to Snyder are like, Ron Rivera's not good, and that's the problem. They're just not good enough. And then he's got, you know, Scott. You'll hear me say all year, he is the root of a lot of these problems, because again, you know, since 2019, that's when I got my scouting training, you know, from former NFL, you know, and one thing I learned is, you know, situational football. And I don't see that from Scott Turner at Philadelphia all the time. You know, Kenneth Gainwell, that's a guy evaluated before the draft. Like, they got a guy that they don't necessarily dominate. And I think once Philadelphia gets all those pieces running, it's Super Bowl contender. I feel bad saying this as a Washington fan.
It's okay. I think it's okay.
Yeah, if you want to look at a team like the Giants, that's fool's gold right now. I know they're doing good, but that's really good code, because their talent level is just not there. You know, Dallas, Philadelphia, really good talent, receivers, really good talent. But in the end, it's going to be how far these coaches can go. And I don't think coaching staff does not match Philadelphia. Washington definitely does it. And, right now, funny with Philadelphia is as good as Jalen Hurts is, I still think you guys do all right with B comes in. He still manages your games, and he still does enough. So Philadelphia, to me, that's what, like I said, if somehow Washington can pull it out, you're talking about everything went wrong for Philadelphia.
This is where I see where the Commanders have a good shot to win this game, is because right now, you know, the Eagles are sort of down in the middle of their defensive line, with Jordan Davis going down with the high ankle sprain. You just saw last Thursday, you know, Pierce from the Texans just run all over him, you know, violently.
Yep.
You know, he was running through whoever was around him, you know. And I think with Gibson and, you know, Brian Robertson, if the Commanders stick to the run, and then I know it's an if, and then they go play action off of it, you can almost really, you know, contain Heineke from doing anything crazy. Because once the run is going, you got the play action going. He's not looking to, you know, do anything beyond his skill level. He's just hitting the guy, whether it's the tight end, whether it's the running back, whether it's McLaurin or Dotson, in over the middle, if they stick to run. So I think that it's going to be a lot closer than what people believe it's going to be. And then also, you know, your front four on the defensive line has been playing better as of the last couple of games. And, if you can stop the run, with Hurts and then combine that with a Miles Sanders, hey, now you're really starting to see if you put the game in Jalen's hands to see. Now he's been proving it week by week that he can do it. But if the game gets close and it's close throughout the game, where it's a competitive game and he's going to have to make certain throws to, convert on first downs, and then in the red zone and all that, it could be decent, man. And, obviously I'm going to go with the Eagles, but it's not, I'm definitely not going to sit there and say the Commanders can't pull it off.
No,
because it's any day it can happen. You never know. I'm not the type that I'm not looking at this undefeated record as something like I hope they go undefeated. That is not the assignment.
Right. The
assignment is you never know when you're going to win, but stay healthy. Hopefully we're going to make the playoffs. Stay healthy and just do what you can to get better each week. So if you lose a game here or two, okay, that's fine as long as you stay healthy.
Sometimes
that's my outlook on it.
I think the run game, like you said, I think that's a big one. But to me, the biggest X factor, Hurts really showed me a lot in that first game. He went for 340 yards, 3 touchdowns. And I think that this is an opportunity that they understand with Washington, their weak spots. But compared to the last game, our second-year linebacker, Jamin Davis, this is a guy who's really been night and day. Right. So I think if anything can go right for Washington, it's going to be the ability to spy Jalen Hurts. Also, our safety, Cam Curl.
Yes.
He wasn't in that.
He wasn't there the first time.
I agree with you. It definitely can be it's one of those things where it can be a close game with it. There's no scenario will I see Washington being convincing. But you mentioned like a step. I feel like with half the coaches in the league, I feel a little more confident with that. But when you have an offense, he'll have success from the run. Like you're talking about 3rd and shorts, 4th and shorts. She's got 2 backs that are only big. They can get yards after contact, and he just doesn't do it with the lack of confidence in play calling. But against Philadelphia, like you said, if they do continue, in the middle right now, that can definitely change a lot of things. But again, right. I like Heineke over Wentz. I think he can give you a little more backyards. We haven't really seen that backyard start. We've seen the coach really try to make him into a 5-step what he is. So maybe this is the matchup that we see a little surprise and see them mix it up a little bit. But I do Heineke over Wentz though, but that's not saying much.
Right. And then I did want to talk about one player in particular, St. Juice. I like him. He is a physical. He's a physical corner who pays good attention to detail in his in his skills. In regards to defending. Especially it doesn't really matter what the size of the receiver is. He is good. I've watched him even in the first game we played against the Eagles. He stood out to me over anybody else because he never backed down. He might have gotten out of position maybe once or twice, but for the most part, he's been pretty solid the rest of the year. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, I'll tell you, when we played Philadelphia, he was playing the slot. He was out of position. You had one on the other. So this is where he's more comfortable because he's that physical corner. So having him on that, he's going to be on Brown. That's what I really believe, and I do think that he'll probably travel with him because that's not something that our defensive coordinator usually does. He doesn't have our corners travel with the thing. He showed the mix of physicality and just running the route for the guy. Really did good against Jefferson, and that interception that got called back. Fans, it was the right call. Yeah, but the problem is this is supposed to be football, and guys that years ago watching when guys are both grabbing each other, they let it go, and that's what kind of corner he is. Yeah. So tight. That's where I get too concerned. But I think as far as St. Juice, I think he matches up, duplicate 2 or 3 of them because the rest of the Washington corners, Kendall Fuller, this is a guy age out right now. St. Juice is the new blood. I do think next year they can get a corner at cornerbacks, they can be that much better. But yeah, I think we saw what time, and you can't have St. Juice on him and AJ Brown, so they might move him around. I think that the Philadelphia passing game can get going pretty early, but curl this week, and it sounds like as long as Chase Young is not sore after today's workout, again, he'll be under a snap count. But what I love about him in this matchup is he's just going to draw a lot of attention line, and they'll try to chip him. They'll try to really get at him early, and they've been really lining up in that 5 wide front 4. They've been using 5 for a lot of, and they've had a lot of success in that. So I think if they continue to go with Kirk Cousins, if they can get in his face, Jalen Hurts, that's the thing. He can move, unlike Kirk Cousins. If they can keep balls get knocked down, it's not all about sacks, all about turnovers. It's about getting close and knocking. That's what Washington has the ability to do. Again, with all this off the field crap, I wonder. I know they say they just like to keep it, on the field, but we heard our tackle today, Jason, in the locker room, and he just sounds pissed and fed up too. So I find it hard to work on some of these guys' psyche, but hopefully not.
Yeah, because it's just, it's a lot. We went over that, earlier on. It's a lot to have to deal with outside distractions from owner he's not bringing anything good to the team, But what I will say is, going back to last Thursday's game, another way I see the Commanders, muddying up the game is the Eagles' offensive line, pass protection last Thursday was not good. It wasn't good from Lane Johnson, and it wasn't good from Jordan Mailata. I saw Jerry Hughes. He was tearing Mailata up. Then when he got going, he just started switching sides. One minute it was Lane Johnson, next minute it was Mailata. So now you're looking at it even in that line. The defensive line from the Texans is bottom of the barrel. If they're 31 or 32 or 32 or 32, you get to this defensive line here with Payne, Chase, not he was 94. Forgot his type of his head, or Payne. Who's the other one? I forgot the top of my head.
Sweat are your guys, and then Chase Young's coming back. You talk about around. That's what they do right to left. And again, like I said, if Young does play, I expect him to be on a strict snap count. But, they have guys like, I interviewed him, prior to the year, James Smith-Williams. This is a guy from him, stepping up. I think he's at 4.5 sacks right now. So I think the one thing they do well is sack the quarterbacks. So hopefully if they can get that going, and that's one thing, an Alabama fan, I followed him from Oklahoma there, and he's really exceeded what I think he can. If you get him pressured, if you keep knocking him down, he's tough, but he's going to start making mistakes. If they can really, what they saw in the Texans, I would watch that Texans game, and I would really try to do
the same thing to see if he learned his lesson.
Other than stunts, Washington is not blitzing. They're one of the least, right now, but still getting, top 10 pressure. So I think this is a game where you start sending Davis. You just have to rattle Hurts early on. But again, it's the primes matter who the coaches are. Washington's had just tremendous problems on these primetime games. But these blowouts on primetime, they're just getting old. So all I hope is for Washington pull it out. I think the fact is this could be Taylor Heineke's last. Unfortunately, I think they probably go back to Wentz because he's coming back. His finger will probably be ready. Taylor Heineke really doesn't have a good game and they don't win. I think he could go back to him. I'm pushing for Sam Howell because I think at this point you lose another game. NFC East, a guy that can win you some games, but you also got to go into that draft knowing where you stand. Because Carson Wentz, I think he's released because that's a zero cap hit to release him. Just understanding you made a mistake. And Taylor right now, Sam Howell would be the only quarterback going forward. So I really think if you lose against Philadelphia, in Philadelphia, you're talking about a 21 1-0 first half, I think you definitely think about right now. The 2-1, they're winning despite him.
Because my thing is like you said, if the game, let's say the game does get out of hand or they lose this game, why would you go back to Wentz at this point? You're not gaining. There's no, like you said, there's no dead cap going for next year. There's no guaranteed money. Why would you? I would just, like you said, I would go to Howe. But I wouldn't. I think, and this is me, I don't think, if I had to put a bet on it, win or lose this game, I don't think they go back to Wentz. I think that's it. I think that's it
Because
for him. And it's sad. It's sad to me because you can tell he has the skills, but it's something mentally just, I don't know. It's just like he's broken.
He's broken physically.
Yeah.
Get the ball downfield. But if you saw when those couple runs that he had before he got hurt, man, he's just, he knows that he can get the ball downfield. But this offensive line of Washington is bad. Lost our center early on, second year in a row. They've had issues at their guard positions. Andrew Rivera, Carolina over the hill guy. So that's the thing. You're going to bring him back if I think it's right now. It's 2 more games. If 2 more games, they have to give a third round to the Indianapolis Colts instead of a second round pick. So that's a lot to lose, right? A reason, especially if you're talking about they'll drop to 4 and 6, and the way Philadelphia's running away with it, and looking at that second spot. But I think Washington fans are still one eye to that wild card. Again, it's really just hoping for mediocrity. That's what the fans have really got used to. I think that if you have an opportunity to see what you have, and you're going to get them killed behind this offensive line, all you have to do is look at North Carolina 2021. He lost weapons and running backs in the NFL. He turned into a dual threat overnight. For the first yards rushing, he had 831 yards rushing and 11 touchdowns his final year in North Carolina on a guy who's battle tested. This is a guy that this is the ideal situation for him. I said it would not be the ideal situation unless an injury occurred. I think the next game against the Houston Texans is ideal. Full week, ready, first team reps, ready to go. But again, I hope I'm wrong. I just don't in the play calling, and I see Taylor Heineke constantly over wide open lanes. He's got reads that are there. I don't know what's going on. I just think sometimes that's as much as you're going to get. And I think you've seen the ceiling for him. I think you've seen what Wentz can do. I think Wentz would probably be wide cut because he's broken down. So again, hopefully we see the young kid. But right now, this is just I hate to be the realist, but there's a lot of fans that are grasping onto it. I've got about 10 I'm ready to come out with. I'm just waiting for it to be closer to official.
All right. So I have one final question for you. The state of the NFL or the league this year. I know I talked about it with my guys earlier on in the week. I feel as though the talent, I don't necessarily think it's the talent that is the reason why we have so many teams with subpar records. I think it's the fact that they have stripped so many things out of the preseason preparation. For one, they don't play. The starters don't play in the preseason games anymore. They do inter squad, practices. Whether the Redskins the Commanders, will have a joint practice with the Texans, or the Eagles will have a joint practice with the Dolphins, and they get all of that workout, and then you don't see these guys in a real game, on TV with, reps or any of that. And then they come out week 1 and they're supposed to perform. They're just not. And I think obviously we know a lot of it is because, they want to protect guys from getting hurt and all that. But the quality of the football is suffering. So what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you. And I don't physicality out of the game. That's one thing. I think you have defensive players, instead of just thinking to how are they going to land on them, are they going to follow through? They're going to get, we've just seen it. So it's overthinking on what they have to do, because right now the league, it's clear they want to see, because college football right now, NFL is great and they're making a ton of money, but man, use is king, and they want to get these points. They want to see games 65 to see that, and the only way to do that is to really just increase the penalties, throw the flags, and they've been told personally. I think that's a big part of the reason. Also, like you mentioned, not playing. We're seeing hamstring injuries like I've never seen before. Like I think we've had 12 players that on our team 3 to 4 games just from hamstring issues, and they used to be more physical. Had less of these kind of injuries. So to me, I think that there's a lot of inequity in the ways of being trained, but I think you're going to see a change right now, probably in the next week or two. You're going to see this is really when they start to, I think the teams are going to start to separate themselves, get their footing. Like I say, the Giants, 4 out of the next 5 games. I think that's what's going to start to happen with teams. You're going to really see what they're in the end right now. I think there's a lot of bad coaching. You know what I mean? Yes. Like people are pissed.
I think so too.
They have every reason to be, because come on. What are we doing here? Washington, they talk about how bad the coaches are. All their young minds, O'Connell, Shannon, all these guys are going out. Like these are the guys that you're talking about are the up and coming. This is a guy that I would love to see in Washington next year running the team. A lot of people would be like, could he start there? But I think that's the kind of league that this is trending to. It's an offensive-minded league. Some gurus on these guys becoming the head coaches. I don't think it's going to work as much. You see with the Jets, Robert, they understand what they are. They know how to, although they have a top, draft in Wilson, they understand that make him manage the game right now. Don't make him play hero ball. And that's what they continue to do. So I think coaching, what you said, and it just has a lot to do with right now. And unfortunately, it's really affecting the product. And, teams that could probably have more of a defensive advantage from just being maybe, over aggressive.
All right. So I think there's one thing we both can agree on. I can't stand the Cowboys, but
yeah,
they're a good team, but it is what it is at this point, man. But Adam, brother, it was a pleasure. It was an honor to have you on the podcast. Please let the people know where they can find you at, man, so they can follow you, subscribe to your podcast, so we can enjoy the intel that you put out there, man.
Definitely. And you know what? That's why I love coming on, other shows that aren't Commanders, because, it's usually I start to put out my scouting evaluations. They're not strictly just to Washington. All my watch minimum of 8 games. I put them out probably 4 to 5 a week. So that's coming up. Washington visit. It does not matter. I'll have a lot of those evaluations. Of course, all my Commanders reports on a weekly at the Burgundy and Gold report.com. Again, you can subscribe to that. I don't charge any fees. I don't have, all I ask is, check us out, subscribe, and just follow. You get my, to you directly. I don't sell information. So again, the Burgundy and Gold report.com, B&G report. I'm on pretty much every social media handle. Just search for my name and the B&G report, or the Burgundy. So I got a little show called B&G Report Happy Hour. Just a show where I put together highlights. Sometimes that's a franchise. Well, again, we'll have more of the at 2023 NFL draft prospects coming up, Power 5 guys. So a lot of stuff's going to be coming out in the next month.
All right, boss. Well, like I said, it was a pleasure having you on, man. Good luck Monday night. Hopefully, in the near future, we get back on with each other, man. We share some more intel, brother, and have a good weekend. Definitely. And have a good night.
All right, take it easy.
All right, brother.